we're happy to look at summaries, but really the requirement is for the links, just so we can go in and quickly figure out how many, how long, how good. It's the same thing as we did for your midterm evaluation, except this time it actually counts. I would suggest you want to get them to me as soon as possible, probably today. I'll consider them tomorrow if I get through my email, but right now things are piling up really fast, so no guarantees. But try to get them to me. I'll tell you what, I'll take them through tomorrow, but get them in, okay? And again, what you need to do is if at this point, I don't know that all of your mentors, all the people who gave workshops, are still looking at venue. So just DM me or email me with your name, the workshop you watched, and a blurb that tells me that you actually watched it. Okay, something important you learned, something interesting, something like that. And yes, can people not taking RCOS for credit still do a workshop next semester? We had several of those this semester. We will continue on. We are an equal opportunity tormentor. We allow anybody to get up and face their demons.
We're sitting right below 100 with 93.
Okay. You know what? Let's kick it off. It's the last day. I'm expecting we're gonna have a lot of people leverage that. We don't have to be there two lectures or two meetings today.
Fair. Okay. In that case, welcome back, everyone. Happy Friday. The last RCOS meeting of the semester. This is so sad, but it's been a great semester, and I think I can speak at least on behalf of the coordinators. It's could have gone much worse, so we appreciate the work of all the mentors and all the great projects and participation we saw. So much appreciated. We really made do with what we had. And yeah, we have a couple things to get through today, and then the last batch of presentations. So, and yes, I see some people in the chat, kind of with their messages. Definitely check us out, especially if this is your first semester of RCOS. It's even better in person. I promise. Yeah. I think all of us can speak on that.
I will.
And in fact, yeah. Usually in this last meeting, we would have a nicer send off. We'd get pizza and drinks for everyone. We ran the numbers. We didn't have it in the budget to send everyone pizza today. Maybe if we save next semester, if we're still.
Maybe you could all order.
Send pizza overseas.
Yeah. Maybe you could all get yourself a pizza or some kind of takeout and sit and watch these last presentations.
Exactly, a whole pie just for
exactly.
Just through RCOS. But there we go. Yeah. Okay, in that case, next slide. So again, just some reminders. Another note on course evaluations and project presentations. Next slide. Again, are they still open, Professor, the course evaluations?
I don't know. I don't get the announcement.
If they are still open, please. Okay, they closed today. Hopefully it's at the end of the day. Please do the RCOS. Oh, great.
RCOS they are. It says currently in progress.
And for my
Perfect.
section, I'm sitting right at 47%.
Oh, what about you, your section, Professor?
Last I checked, it was 45. We were having a little competition, but I didn't check this afternoon because I didn't think he'd try to one up me. I was one ahead of
So,
him.
But
okay,
we
to
are
go everyone
close.
do your course evaluations for RCOS. We get about 55. We'll drop one more status update from grading at the end.
There's not many of it. Not many of you have to do it, right? I mean, this was earlier today, so
Yeah,
knock them out.
an easy milestone reached, definitely. But okay. And next slide. I believe I hand it off to you.
Okay. So I want to do these things fast because we do have 6 presentations today. We want to get through them a little quickly. But rainbow grades are out there. This is my last best guess at everything you have. There's 3 things to watch out for, or 4 things to watch out for. Check to make sure. I don't know. There's a bunch of things to watch out for. Check to make sure that the bonus sessions are correct. That if you did more than 3 bonus sessions, it maxes out at 3. We appreciate you going to more. I think that they're useful in and of themselves, but we give you credit for 3 of them. So if you're less than 3, or if if you're more than 3, it's going to max out at 3. But make sure your number of bonus sessions are correct. Let me know if they're not. If you're going to do a bonus session, if you still decide last minute, now I have to do one, and we have a couple on that are recorded, sitting out there, it is not clear that all of the mentors are going to have the chance to review all of their venue postings and get that updated. So please, doing the venue and everything is great. It's a good way to do it. There's a 50% possibility that it'll get accounted. So if you do attend late, please email me or message me, DM me on Discord. Tell me your user ID, your RCS ID, your name, something interesting or informative or useful about the workshop you watched. And I might go back and check it in venue too. But just if you do me those 3 things, then particularly on the early ones that weren't in venue, I will put you in as having attended. Okay, so give me those things, we will get you in. If you can't give me those things, then I'm going to be a little skeptical. Check to make sure your attendance is correct, and check to make sure your status updates are correct. You can go back in and look at your status updates. If you submitted one and it's coming back blank, you probably submitted it late and didn't have enough late days. But check that first before you complain to me. Okay? So attendance, status updates, bonus sessions. The final thing is the team meeting column. I believe it's looking pretty good right now. But there were a few people who were getting a blank in the team meeting column. What that means is that we met with all the groups. So if you have a blank in that column, we didn't meet with you, which means that we don't have you associated with a group. So please let us know. If you have a blank there, please let us know. DM myself or Professor Kuzman. Let us know about who your group is. Give us the name of either the project lead or somebody on the team, because somebody doesn't let us have team names, so I don't know which particular team is Sage, for example, or Temperature. Give us enough identifying information. We can put you in there. We will put you in the group, and I will use that when we give the presentation scores. So, if you want your presentation score, you have to be associated with a group. Please make sure you do that. And we will be grading Monday and Tuesday, so the faster you get these to me, I plan to have the presentation stuff in by Sunday night, so I don't want to be changing stuff after Saturday. Please get them to me as quickly as possible. Second thing, Shianne Hulbert, if you're a CS major, Shianne Hulbert should have reached out to you about mentoring for next semester. This isn't the RCOS mentoring. This is the general CS course mentoring. I wanted you to know that I am actually on the schedule to be doing open source software next semester. We don't offer open source software very often. we will have a number of undergraduate mentors on it. If you're interested, we don't offer it all that often, so I don't have a lot of students who are still here who have taken it. I think Stephen Van Zyl and Olivia are two of them. I'm not sure how many other of you are still here in RCOS, but if you are interested in being a mentor and you've either taken open source software before or you've been involved with RCOS, right? It's essentially dealing with all the open source stuff that we do in RCOS in a more formalized way. And barring people from open source software from the class itself, you guys are the next best group to grab from. So please consider that and please respond to her message. If you're not in CS, it's Shianne Hulbert. You can find her on the CS pages. Just tell her that you're interested and she will send you the information you need. She sends it out to all CS undergrads, not other people unless they tell her. All right. We've been through this. Please make sure you're on RCOS.io so I can find you. That's where we'll go. If I don't get you associated to a project, this is where I'll go to try to associate you with one. But make it easy for me. Tell me what project you're on. There have been some questions about the final commit summary, and you can see that I have this in as 4 separate slides. You must submit this if you're taking it for credit. It's 10% of your open source grade, which is 50% of your overall grade, so it's worth about 5% all by itself. And the reason it's worth so much is because it saves us an inordinate amount of time trying to find out what your open source contributions are for the semester. Put hard links to all of your commits in Git, to all of the issues you open, to all the comments you put in there. Just things so we can go through and make sure that we grab everything that you contributed, your wiki, history updates, anything that you want us to consider. Put hard links so we can click on it and go there and look. Don't give us things like your web page because we want the hook to the code that produces the web page, right? So give us the links to the underlying stuff so that we can verify that it's out there open source and licensed correctly and everything else. Okay, the mid-year review should be a guideline. This one counts. The mid-year review didn't count. This should work. I had some people complaining it doesn't. If you need to replace your name with your Git name, your Git username. You could probably leave out the since date, although if you do it from the start of the semester, that would save us a lot of time. This is if you have your repository checked out on your disk. Go into the repository, do this command. Date is the starting date you want to do. Branches are any branches that you want incorporated. This vertical bar is necessary. It's a Linux pipe. Run it into a commit or a grep. And what will come out is a list of links. They will look something like this. Right? This is for the open source software course, which is actually in RCOS in the open. This is my commits the last time I actually gave the course. It runs on for page after page, but this is good enough. This is what it'll look like. This will allow us to get it. So GitHub username or organization, right? So I used RCOS here, right? Oh, sorry. Just fill in all the things in angle brackets with the appropriate values. This is a good example of how to do it. All right. Rubric, I'm just going to throw this up. We've seen this every class since we started doing presentations, and I think 2 classes before, just for your little, just a little bit for your information so you can help us grade. Excellent down to 1. And Frank.
Yes.
Is this... there we go. Sorry.
Okay. So we have 6 presentations to get through today. We're going to do it all in one track. So on behalf of everyone here, we ask that the project's going now. Please keep it as close to 10 minutes as you can. We understand there are some larger projects, but even then, it's the last meeting. Get through everything you need to, but just be considerate of the time. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, cool. These are the commits or the people are going to go. NG missed his group's presentation, so he's just going to go and give us an update on his status. I think it's pipeline, right?
Anyway. No, pool buddy.
Poll buddy, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
I had the P right.
Yes.
And then we'll go into our last 5. We're going to stay in this room, and here's the form you need. We will paste the form into the chat room. I'm also going to paste right now the attendance code for submittee. I do not have this in yet because I got sidetracked trying to respond to everybody's "my rainbow grades are wrong" messages. So we will call it the late Professor Turner password. Oh, did that not go through? There we go. Late Professor Turner. I will get that up very quickly. In the meantime, let's take a look at Venue. If you can use Venue, you can do it right now. I hope. I didn't check. I always check. Like I said, you guys had me hustling this afternoon trying to get. There we go. Good old Ethan. He's not that old. He's a little old. I think he's Okay, and this is what it looks like. And again, I will paste late Professor Turner in as the password. And you can put that in just a few minutes when I get that in. All right. That's all I have for you. Frank, Professor Kuzman, Olivia.
That's everything from my end.
Stephen, anybody else here?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. I think the only other thing I'm going to say is I hope that all of you will stick around and see these last couple of presentations. They should be pretty good. It's certainly a good group. If you can't, thank you for a great semester. I want to echo everything that Frank said. It's been good. It'll be better once we're back together again in person. But you guys continue to do a really great job, and I'm excited both about finding out the end of the semester and getting ready for the next one. So thank you for a good semester. Sorry about the pizza. And we'll see you guys later. All right. Everybody have this code, or at least the oh, it came in. Okay, yeah. At least oh, and your final commit summary is due tonight at midnight or 11:59 p.m. Please get that in. There's people that miss it every year, and it both increases our work and decreases their grade, which again is very painful. All right, so thank you. I think we're probably good at this point. I'm gonna take this down, hide that, and I think our first contestant is NG. Do you want to present, or do you want me to present the slides for you? How do you want to do it?
I could present. I could share my screen.
Sure, go ahead and share your screen, and then I will stop my own video and pick up yours.
Okay, cool.
And let's see.
Okay, cool. So I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
All right, and for all of you, please, if you're filling out a form, you're welcome to fill one out on NG. But remember, we've already done Poll Buddy, so this is just kind of his personal remarks. So I'm not exactly sure. Put NG down instead of Poll Buddy, just so that we know, so we can differentiate it from the overall. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Professor.
You're welcome.
Okay, so hey guys, my name is Enzo Lu, a front-end developer from Poverty Group. Our group has already presented in last Friday, but I couldn't participate because of some personal issues. I'm grateful for giving me this opportunity to make up. I will briefly talk about my contributions in our group project. So the first task I solved is a simple one. I just need to add a new button, the join group, on my group's page. As you can see, the join group button is here. Once user click the join group button, a window will pop out. User can see the message, please enter your group code. Once they enter a group code, the page will redirect to a pose page of group 123, just I entered before. And you can check it since the URL here proves that we have a good URL routing design, so you can easily understand what current page is by just looking at our URL here. And the second task I solved is more challenging. So it is the log in with school and register with school functionalities. In this task, as a front-end developer, I need to cooperate with our backend developer. In the past, we hard-code school lists in our front-end JS file. As you can imagine, it is very inflexible. On last Friday, my group member, Taylor, shows how he created the related backend API, and my task here is to call the backend API, get the school list data, and show it up on the front-end page. So as you can see, when we load this page, we have already, our front-end has already called the backend API, and we get the data, save it as a data structure in the JS file. And if you click on these, you will extract that data structure, and the whole school list will show up, and you can randomly pick one. So we can pick Rensselaer here, and we click the submit button, we will redirect to our API CAS system. So one thing here I would like to mention is when some members create the whole pages in the past, they design the whole structure like that. So as you can see, we have a component named school picker, which in the past is used to hardcode a school list and gave the data to both login with school page and register with school page. I dealt with login with school page first and thought it is easier to call backend API directly in login with school page. Hunter, my project manager, suggests me to remove that part to school picker file. After I do that, I understand the reason immediately because my next task is to deal with the register with school page. It is very easy to implement because register with school page can use data from school picker as well, and I can avoid writing some redundant code. So I learned a lesson that when working in a team, especially in an open source project, you need to communicate more with others and think about problems from a larger perspective. And the third task I solved is registration validation. So when our user register with Poverty account, we need to validate the inputs to avoid they gave some garbage to hurt our database. I set some testing rubric in the front-end page according to our wiki documentation. As you can see, the left-hand part is our wiki documentation. Only after they pass all the front-end tests, our front-end page will send messages to backend and create a new record in our database. If not, we will see the error message. We will show the error message to our users, as you can see the red sentence here. But I think only front-end tests are not safe enough, so I also modified the backend code and add the same tests. You may think it is redundant since the front-end and backend have the same checks and all errors will stop by the front-end page before sending requests to backend API. But if a user is intended to make some damage, he can do that by using some tools like Postman to send API requests directly. So I think it is also necessary to add tests on the backend part as well. So that's basically all I would like to talk today, and thanks again for giving me the second chance to make up. So any question?
So yeah, So it's redundant if you do it in both places, and you showed and you had a good response for why you wanted to do it on the back end as well as the front end. But is there a reason why you couldn't get rid of it from the front end?
I mean, I would like to not cost many memory use, like or access to the database, because if we just check in front end, we can do it really quick. And instead of accessing the database and requesting the API, so from that perspective, I think we need to keep the front end check.
All right. Anybody else? I agree with not relying on front end validation. I was just, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Angie. I'm glad you got your. I'm glad you got the opportunity. Thank you for reaching out to get presenting.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see. The next one is RaidTA.
Hello. I can share my screen.
You can share your screen, then we are in good shape. It's hard to do a demo if you don't share your own screen.
Yeah. All right. So, hello, I'm Austin, the project lead for RaidTA.
And I'm Brian, the partner for this project.
So, what is RaidTA? We set out to create a simulator for massively multiplayer online game encounters. These would include things like raids, dungeons, and other computer-controlled encounters. So currently, we took our threat system from World of Warcraft. A threat system is essentially how the game determines what units should be attacking at what time. So the more damage someone does to a unit, the higher their threat gets, and if it exceeds a certain threshold, the NPC swaps to them. This is designed to be a practice tool because even though there are many guides and videos online that outline all the encounters, in order to actually practice the encounter, you need other human players, which sometimes goes up to 39 other players. So in order to actually physically practice, which at least personally I know is a very good way to learn the fights, there's really no way to do this. We spent a lot of our design time on trying to make the program as modular as possible. So this way we can easily add new encounters, units, and mechanics and make changes without creating entire new C++ scripts and things like that.
Great. Our tech stack is pretty minimal. We've really only used Unreal Engine for development. It was our game engine of choice, mostly just to experiment with the blueprint features and the C++ scripting that's included with the engine. We originally wanted to stick to only C++, but some things were easier to develop, things like UI and whatnot, so we just did a mix rather than choosing solely one or the other. We stuck to Git for our version control. We were pretty conservative with using Git's features, so we just had branches for each of our members, just me and Austin, and then any features we had were pushed onto a main repository. And the project is very new. We just started this semester, so there aren't any big plans at the moment when it comes to something that would require like more than a few team members. So we haven't used any of the more scalable Git features either. And then since it's just me and Austin, it was pretty simple to keep track with Discord, just to see how we're doing, keeping track on progress and what we should do in the coming weeks.
So the features we have right now are you can have a party of up to 9 characters. One person controls all the characters. So normally in an encounter, you only control your own character, but we figured the best way to practice is to have the entire raid or party group be controllable by one person. So you can select each party member with the number keys 1 through 9, and you can select where to move or which target to select with the mouse. Right now we have it set up where each player character and non-player character are a unit or subclass of a unit. This lets us define the stats like movement speed, attack damage, attack speed, things like that. As of now, we have once a player or unit has a target, it will repeatedly attack that target on a given timer, this defined by attack speed, and do a specific amount of damage defined by attack damage. We do have a subclass for non-player characters. This allows us to have the same stats and code for units while also adding the threat tables and threat algorithms. As far as the AI for encounters goes, for example, the boss, AoE effects, and targeting, we define these in Blueprint. We did this because it was a lot easier to be modular. So instead of creating a C++ script where we say, have to define our own functions and define our own timers and things, we can use the built-in Blueprint things where we can say, and Blueprint is a block-based coding language. So we can say, have a repeatable event and check conditions, and depending on conditions, do specific things. And it's a lot faster to do, and it requires a lot less programming knowledge. So in theory, if we scale up, we could have new members who aren't as experienced with coding do the easier Blueprint things.
So there are a few, yeah, I gotcha. So there are a few things left in progress for this semester. One of the things was for our units. We wanted to have a healing mechanic. With Unreal Engine by itself, when it comes to damage, it's UE4 is pretty verbose, as they have UE4 damage events, which can determine who did the damage, which controller, if it's a player, which controller did the damage, and where it's coming from. So we wanted to do something similar for healing. And, you know, the simple way is to just, you know, make the damage value negative. But we wanted to make sure, we wanted to be as detailed as possible in case we wanted to include other features like debuffs or damage over time stuff for healing and whatnot. And then for the threat system, we went through the design process and it's not fully implemented yet, but we hope to have that done soon.
The actual only reason, or the only part of the threat system we don't have as of now is that due to some tech issues, trying to pass the reference of the encounter to the players, we're having some issues with. But other than that, the entire threat system is all done. We have the threat tables in, the threat increments, and all their copied values from World of Warcraft's threat system. And now for a demo. So I have a very simple demo scene set up here. So right now we have 3 players, each selectable by a number. So 1 is here, 2 is here, 3 is here. And this current encounter is set up that it will place these red area circles around a random player every couple of seconds. And then after 3 of those, it will create larger ones that will go top, middle to bottom. So then with these players, I can then click on the boss and they'll start attacking the boss. We also have it set up where each player has a range. So if I click over here, the player will move into range before it attacks. And the players will also, after moving, keep attacking that target. So it'll move and then keep resuming attacking. And if a player gets hit by one of these area circles, they take damage. All right, so for our organization, we split between a mostly encounter to unit-based design. So Brian worked on the units, doing all the AI and stats. and the UI. I worked on the overarching design, so linking bosses to friendly units, the encounter spawning system. So in our actual Unreal Engine 4 scene, the only thing we have is this encounter blueprint. So this encounter blueprint spawns the raid manager, which controls all the player units. It spawns all the units, and it spawns the boss itself. And actually, we can take a sec to look at the blueprint system. So this is the blueprint for this encounter. We have it, and we can also define functions in C++ code that we can reference in blueprint. So we created the add new players and add new unit functions. We can reference them in blueprint, give them the references they need, and this one will spawn these specific units at these locations, and so on. And here is the boss AI code. And then we also have the spells that, quote unquote, spells that the boss spawns that are also modular, that we have a database, and we can easily spawn them at a certain location with a certain size, rotation, things like that. And I also worked on the threat tables for the NPCs.
So in the future of our project, it's still just us, but we gotta have plans. What we have right now is what we define as raid control, where our 1 through 9 units are controlled by a single player with the number keys. But we hope in the future to have something called single control, in which case you yourself control only 1 unit, and then the other 8 or the other 1 to 8 units can be controlled by an AI, or whether it be like melee DPS or ranged attackers or healers. We want to have functions for those kinds of units. That way you can focus on a particular role if you wish. We want to implement specific encounters when we have our when we're able to. All right, thank you, Professor Turner. When we have, we want to have encounters close to the MMOs that are out currently, and we're not artists, but it doesn't hurt to have our little project look better. So visual updates are always good, and we want new mechanics to better represent the MMOs we're trying to get inspiration from, like debuffs, damage over time effects, and force movement. And then we just want to fulfill our vision of having this be a practice tool for encounters that already exist.
And that's it. Any questions?
So the question in the chat, if you can see it, is this project sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends?
No, it is not.
We haven't gotten any emails yet, but we'll see.
So I'm going to ask a question. Who's your icon designer or skin designer? Because that was some awesome.
That was me in just Microsoft Paint.
We do have drawing classes and art classes. You may want to consider. No, good job. Oof.
No, you're right.
No, I actually kind of like the simplicity of that really is a secondary thing. It's really important to the gameplay, but you didn't allow that to stop you from making progress, and I think that's a really good lesson to kind of learn. So good job.
Thank you.
All right. So who do we have coming up on bench? We have on my own time.
That's me.
So,
I'll go ahead and share.
Go ahead.
Here you go. Can you guys see that?
We can. Well, kind of. There we go. Now it's good.
Okay, sweet. So I'm on my own time. I'm just a personal project. So it's just me. So this project started as a personal website, just like a portfolio piece for myself, somewhere I can put up my photographs because I'm a photographer, and just other coding assignment's a little about me, but I had inspiration to create it more of a template so people can emulate it if they want to. Just because it's something that is really powerful when you're applying to jobs and a good resume piece, but it's something that it's kind of can be convoluted sometimes, or it can be expensive to host or for all these like Squarespace or anything. So it's just simple website template. Um, I wrote it. I used a framework called Hugo, which is in Go, is written in Go. It's basically just a static site generator that just you can basically template HTML pages and write it in Markdown, and then it'll generate a whole static site off of it. So this is what it looks like. This is just the front page of On My Own Time. On My Own Time is URL, and I have dialogue, photos, and about me. So for my photos, this is what the splash page will look like, which is the different posts inside of it. And then this is what a gallery post will look like, which is my photographs inside of it. And then I have my dialogue, which is just a concatenation of data and information analysis log. And this is where I'll post like different data analysis stuff because I want to go into the field of data analytics. So just a place for me to post different data analytics stuff. And so the one I'm working on now is analysis of chess. I know absolutely nothing about chess strategy or anything like that. But I wanted to examine it through the lens of just pure data analytics and see if I can learn and get some insight into chess without going the traditional chess theory route of studying books and all that stuff. So I downloaded a database of matches from LI Chess, which is like the biggest chess online game hosting site. And so I did some data management and I pruned those down to from 70 million down to 560 classical matches. I did this in Go. I originally wrote it in Python, but my estimated time for it to run in Python was something like 2.5 weeks or something like that to go through all the data, because the data is in PGN format, which is portable game notation, which is essentially like ELO, the people's names, and the sequence of all the moves. So I wrote it in Go to transfer it to a CSV and also get some data out of the matches. The main thing that I'm examining now is how many pieces a certain piece type captured. So how many pieces a pawn is captured in a given game, a queen, not individual pawns, but just pawns as a whole, rooks as a whole, et cetera, et cetera. And I only wanted to look at classical matches. There are multiple different types of chess you can play on LI Chess. One of them is Blitz, which is like you have like 30 seconds, and then every single time you make a move, you get another second. So it's just insanely fast chess. But I want to examine it through classical, which is 30 minutes plus, or it's 5 minutes plus 10 seconds every time you make a move. So that's more of a, you can think through your moves, and that's what's played mainly in tournaments. And so after that data pruning, I got 11 or 1.1 million games. I split it up so I don't examine them against each other. They're just the pieces and how many they captured and the ELO of the person playing. So I created this core plot. Essentially, any given cell is the correlation between the piece, which is here on the bottom, and the other variable. So for example, here would be ELO, which is the ranking system in chess. So the higher your ELO goes, the better you are. And the result, which is a 1 or a 0, whether you win or not. So as we can see, ELO is related to result. Obviously, the better you are, more likely you are to win. But you get some other weird stuff of if you take with a king, you're less likely to win, which makes sense because if your king is taking pieces, then it's probably out of position. Therefore, you're more likely to lose. But then you have other stuff where ELO is directly related to pawns. So therefore, people who have higher ELOs tend to take more with pawns, therefore utilize their pawn strategy more. And then I broke this down some more. So the ELO ranking that was over all of the matches I examined was ELO ranking 60 or 600 to 3000. And then I split it. So this is the top half of the ELO and the bottom half of the ELO. And some very interesting stuff come out is that later, if you have higher ELO, therefore better people playing the game, If your king takes something, you're more likely to lose. Whereas in the lower ELO, your king taking something doesn't necessarily have a correlation against it. Or sorry, backwards, because 0.1 and 0.07. And then you have other stuff where your ELO is directly related to your king. So your king, if your ELO isn't directly reflective on whether or not you're going to capture pieces with a king, and other stuff like that. And then this is just some exploratory data analysis. I plan on working on it more and refining my hypothesis on this, creating some charts and posting up on my website. So repository structure, I have a bunch of repositories. So on my base GitHub account, which is SumEA, I have a sumea.github.io, which is just my GitHub pages. And then I have another repo called Preview. These are both private for reasons I'll explain later. And then I have an organization called OMOT, which is the it's abbreviation of On My Own Time, the acronym for it. And then inside of there, I have On My Own Time, and then I have a bunch of repos that are submodules. So I have my dialogue, which I just wanted that to be a separate repository, so I could just commit to that and not have to commit to the main repo. And I have raw data where I keep all of my massive CSV files when I'm analyzing. I also have a photos repo, which is private. The original reason why I split it up into submodules is because I wanted to license, open source license my main repo, but I didn't want my photographs to be necessarily open source. So that's why I made a private photography repo with just my photos. So that way I can compile the site and I can look at all the information on my site, and users can too, aside from my photos. And then I have a theme, which is Hugo uses themes to generate the static web pages. And then I have a template, which is the version of it which people can look at and use. And I created it very minimalist, so I don't have to go scanning through all my files and trying to figure out what does what. I'm working on a better README for it right now, and tutorial on how to replicate it. And then I have omot.github.io, which links into the other side. This is my deployment strategy. So the main master branch of On My Own Time compiles via GitHub workflow into this repo, which is my GitHub pages, which then is linked to the domain name On My Own Time. It's all automatic. Whenever I make a push to master, automatically compiles it and pushes it and updates the site. And then On My Own Time Preview, which is just a branch of On My Own Time, it'll push it and compile it into the preview branch, or the preview repo, which will go to On My Own Time /preview. This is for instances when I wanted to show people stuff that I was working on, but didn't necessarily want to put it to my main site and didn't want to go through the headache of trying to pour forward and running it locally and being like, so it just compiles it whenever I push the preview branch of this. And then I have template repo, which compiles to On My Own Time, or omot.github.io, which pushes directly to the template, template.onmyown.time. So in that way, people can view the template live and not have to just rely on the repo and just looking at the static files on the repo and try and figure out in their head what it looks like rendered. So what I got done this semester is I got auto deployment done. I also added the template site, auto deployment for the template site, auto deployment for the preview site. I worked on my dialogue somewhat. I haven't gotten to a point where I'm satisfied with it and going to do a write-up on it. And I reorganized my repository structure. Originally, I had it just all in one private repo, but since I wanted to license it open source, I had to reorganize everything. And then future, I want to finish writing the tutorial on how to clone the site and how to make the preview your own. And then I wanted to finish the one dialogue post I talked about earlier. That's it. Any questions?
So anybody have any questions for On My Own Time? So one of the things that you notice I didn't give anybody else time to respond. One of the things that I'm interested in is how you see other people using this. You know, it's kind of cool to put this out there. You know, do you see them using this just as a template, or do you see them building on it, or you know, just an example? How would you see people actually using this? All of those
I
are
mean-
valid open source ways, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, obviously, I feel like with the two main uses I have for the site are pretty niche. Not everyone's a photographer, and not everyone wants to do data analytics. But using it as a template for if they want to display photos of some kind, because the photos don't necessarily have to be photographs, but art or whatever. But just a basic site that they can use as basically a blog for their coding assignments, and that's. And of course, if they want to build on it, I started just cloning a theme for Hugo, and then I said, I could probably make this better, or oh, I could change this, and then I built upon it and stuff like that. So outlining, because I have a good understanding of how to iterate on top of it, and writing a good tutorial on how to do that, how to iterate on top of it and make it your own. Because obviously, I don't want everyone to create a site directly like this and be shoehorned into a very specific thing. But yeah, writing a tutorial and having people iterate on top of my idea that iterated on other people's ideas, and just keep it evolving.
All right, sounds good. Well, we're moving right along tonight. Any other questions for Avery? All right, so we have pipeline. It looks like next. Actually, before we go to pipeline, are you guys going to display, or do you need me to do it for you?
I can share my screen.
Okay, that'd be great. So why don't you start doing that? And while you're doing that, I'm just going to say we have 2 projects this semester that did personal website kind of things. It would be kind of interesting to get you guys together and see if we can come up with an abstraction, because there's actually some similarities between what you guys saw and how you kind of put things together. So we should consider that if you continue on. I think it was Benji who did one as well. So anyway, just a thought. And I see pipeline is up. And if there's no more questions, pipeline, take the stage.
All right, can you guys hear me?
We can.
So hi, I'm Namish. I'm the project manager for Pipeline. If you didn't already know, Pipeline is the project that manages poly.rpi.edu, which is the website for the student-run newspaper at RPI, the Polytechnic. So we've had a website as far back as 1994. It was a very basic HTML static website, but it helped us get our articles online and to our readers. About a decade ago, we switched to WordPress, which gave our site a lot more style and allowed us to customize it a bit more. But then in 2019, last year, we switched to Pipeline, which is a site completely developed and run by us. We started development on Pipeline as far back as 2016, and it was deployed last year. And it's currently live right now on poly.rpi.edu. So Pipeline is made up of 2 Python frameworks, Django and Wagtail. Django is a very broad framework used in a lot of websites that kind of deal with articles and that sort of thing. Wagtail is Wagtail is a bit more specifically geared towards content management services. And together these frameworks make up the presentation and the functions of our website. We also use Docker containers, and for our database, we use Postgres. Our GitHub link is below, so you can check it out if you want. So our main goals for Pipeline this semester were to continue serving as what is now the sole platform for the Polytechnic. We don't publish a physical newspaper anymore. We wanted to incorporate new interactive features to make our site not only more user-friendly, but more engaging. We are kind of in a transition period now where the first kind of team that developed Pipeline left a while ago. So we're preparing documentation for the website as well as the servers that run it so that we can pass it on to new members. And onboarding new members is a goal we've been pursuing for a while. So the features that were developed, I'll start with my feature. It was view tracking. So our WordPress site actually had view tracking built in, but that was not something that came automatically on Pipeline. So I started with a simple f-string function, which was very rudimentary, and it had a few problems, like it didn't track views by user, so if you just refresh the page, it would add another view. Then I experimented with the Django hit count library, but then finally went to Django tracking analyzer to create a more functional approach. Django tracking analyzer is a very complex and it has a lot of features for a tracker. On the right, you can see what a fully realized version looks like. It can do IP addresses. It can get the date and time of when you access the website and all of that. And we're not planning to implement all of that because it's a bit of a privacy issue. But it would be interesting to see the views for each article as well as when they were most viewed, so that we can see so that we can see how our social media and stuff like that affects how our views come in. So currently, it doesn't display the views next to the articles on our Wagtail backend. It needs either a completely new page or the article page itself. So I'm working on a way to make that possible with Wagtail's architecture. And this semester I also worked on the server deployment. And actually, Dylan contributed the last piece to the server deployment, and that's why we've been able to push a lot of updates this semester. And this is the feature he was working on.
Hi guys, I'm Dylan Lee as my first semester at RCOS, RPI, and working with Pipeline. So during the semester, I was working on mainly the homepage and fixing some of the issues that were on the homepage for a while now. One issue that I fixed was the issue where when you had an article without an image and you chose to span an entire 3 columns, which is how we handle article spacing, it would end up having a blank space on the far right where you would not have an image, and that's where the image would have went. So I just fixed that for all cases where we don't have images, and so now it spans the entire column, or the entire 3 columns for the row. I also added the 2 features inside the homepage that were missing that were allowing people to add overrides the image on the homepage. So in case like an image doesn't have the right proportions on a homepage, you can change that by just having a new image there. And I also added the ability to change the headline feature. So you're able to rewrite the headline on the homepage specifically. Other than that, I was helping Namish and the rest of the poly with production issues. Like he said, deployment was one of them. So yeah.
Hello, I'm Dylan Shields. This is my first semester here and doing RCOS. I tried to make a search bar for the poly. In fact, it's up right now at the moment. But anyway, it's created from HTML and it uses CSS for some styling. There was an attempt to make it match the format of the newspaper. Feature it has is on mobile devices, it only shows the previous magnifying glass, but on larger screens that can support the full search bar that's provided. And one thing that the search bar does is it has an autocomplete feature. So what you can do is it gives you a list of suggestions and you can choose from them, and then you can do it multiple times just to make the search process as quick and easy as possible. It redirects to the search page with the results of whatever the person has searched. Initially, I tried to use PHP to also implement that. That was unsuccessful. I ended up resorting to using jQuery to essentially make this thing work. Yeah, and that's my feature. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirti, and this was also my first semester working with Pipeline and on RCOS. And I was working on the forms feature, which was a feature that was previously worked on, but when I tried to make some updates, I kind of ran into a lot of issues, so I just decided to start from scratch. So I created a revised and updated forms branch, and I created a forum page with email functionality using Wagtail Forms. And right now I have submission working, and you have the option to email submissions to a given address. And I also created a landing page, which the user is taken to after submitting their form. And currently I'm working on implementing the functionality embedded in an article so we can sort of have it as a feedback form for specific articles. And then I want to work on the design features to match the website design, because you can kind of see in the picture of the forms page, it's not yet to the same standard that the Polytechnic is.
Hi, so this semester I worked on data visualization. So I learned how to use a JavaScript library called D3 to build a visualization of RPI safety alert data. And D3 was built by the New York Times, so a lot of the functionality it has is meant for journalism, which was very helpful. So some of the questions my visualization answers is the time of incidents, whether or not RPI students or faculty were involved, if there were any weapons, and also the location. And the goal of the visualization overall is just to encourage more students when they're on campus to use SafeRide and the shuttle service. I also facilitated some user testing on multiple iterations of my progress to help inform improvements, including interactions, like more information being revealed when a user hovers over parts of the visualization. Recently, RPI released a safety alert record that I think was emailed to everybody. And my goal is now to automatically update the visualization with this new data. I believe that this will be constantly updated, so I'm hoping for my visualization to be more dynamic. And a future goal is to create more custom visualizations that can help enrich future poly publications. Thanks.
So those were the features that were developed by my team this semester. In the future, we plan to continue with the development of the features that were not deployed this semester, as well as explore new features. Right now, we've got quite a wish list because in the semester we've been finding out new issues, and so that's the direction Pipeline is heading in. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions? All right. So here's one from me. D3. So that is a open source toolkit, correct?
Yep, I think it's open source, yeah.
You don't know?
No, it is.
Oh man. Okay.
I'm sorry. No, it is.
Okay. So one of the things I like about this is bringing in, I haven't seen a whole lot of groups use D3. I think there was maybe one other one. Bringing in other open source libraries as opposed to having to develop your own on everything is a really good way to leverage and to make progress quickly. But do you want to talk about D3 a little bit? Can you tell us what it allows you to do and how how its community is supported? How any tutorials or anything that you found useful?
Yeah, so the founder of D3, his name is Mike Bostock, and he worked at the New York Times, and he has something called Observable, which is like an open notebook where he has like different projects. For example, for recent like COVID data, he had a lot of tutorials where you can open up the data file and then you can compare. He writes step by step how to pull data from it, how you can make changes to the data sets and it be dynamically updated. And there's like he kind of has like a mini course on there. Like you can move from simple like bar charts, circle diagrams, pie charts, and then I mostly worked on the simple charts because I think even though they're considered the more basic ones, they were also they took a pretty long time to understand and learn. But they do offer, like, he does have a lot of different mini courses to help new people quickly get started.
Cool. Would you consider contributing to it?
Maybe, yeah, when I get better with it.
Good answer. All right, cool. Let's see, we have anybody else have questions? Feel free to ask. Otherwise, next on board is taper, and I have to admit that I keep thinking about this as something getting narrower and narrower, and I think this is more along the lines of duct tape.
No, it's both. That's
Both.
the joke.
Ah, gotcha. All right. You guys want me to present or you want to present?
Nope, I got it. There we go.
See, that looks an awful lot like duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 puns in one. Yep. 2 for the price of 1.
2 for the price of 1. Awesome.
All right, so hello everyone. We're Taper. So the first immediate question is, what is Taper? Taper is a unified dot file manager. So what is that? Taper is a CLI tool for managing configuration files, primarily dot files on Unix-like systems. These are the little and actually sometimes pretty big configuration files that start with a period that you'll find layered around your home directory. If you go on a Linux system and do ls-a, you'll see like a dozen of these. They're used by a variety of programs such as Bash, SSH, tmux, Vim. Like basically everything has a dot file to configure it. Taper's purpose is to taper in all these little files into one file, and then from that one file, tape other files in place. It's a bad joke, but I like it. Taper is inspired primarily by Home Manager at RaidTA on GitHub, but does not require the Nix package manager that Home Manager does. So why you would need it is it goes from this to this. Nice visual diagram. So who are we? I'm Steven. I'm the project leader. I primarily worked on integrating the code from other contributors, fixing bugs, the infrastructure like the make files, and the big refactor that happened at the end of November.
What's up, guys? My name is Matt. I wrote a conflict checker system for Taper. I started our templating system, which I'll get into a little bit more. And I added Git, SSH, and started a few other configurations.
I'm Ben. I added CLI options, PRs to RaidTA, one of our dependencies, finished the Terra templating system, and added config support for the MPV media player.
So the tech we used, Taper is primarily written in Rust, and we make use of the doll configuration format for user configs. Big shout out to NadReRil on GitHub for their awesome Serde doll library and for generally being really helpful and receptive to our issues and PRs that we opened. And of course, a shout out to all the other libraries we use, such as Serde, StructOp, Terra, Include-dir, and many more that I didn't have space for on this slide. Our project was organized primarily around an old school mailing list based workflow. This is the way Git was originally intended to be used and the way it's still used by a number of major projects like Linux. I think Apache still uses it, lots of others. This inherently means we used a blessed repository structure, as only I actually had access to be able to write to the repo. Discussion would happen on the mailing list. Patches would be emailed directly to the mailing list and then reviewed in follow-up emails, and issues could be submitted and discussed right there in the mailing list. So it's all in one. The goal of a mailing list is a public and decentralized communications system without needing an account or locking into a single platform or developer. Anyone can chime in and submit patches as long as they have an email address. You can share patches with each other. If the primary developer stops working on it, someone else just keeps going and they keep using the same mailing list because it's just emails. So it sounds weird, but it works out pretty simply, I guess, because it's all just email.
All right, what's up, guys? Matt taking over. Let's go. So here's a brief timeline of how our project went. So I joined at the start of October, but even before I joined, we didn't really have much going on in September. But we spent a good amount of October, figuring out what tech we actually want to implement into Taper. And we ended up going through a few different ideas and ended up settling on this templating system to use to generate configuration files. In October, we added some things, like I added the conflict checking system, which detects to see if files were tampered with externally by, like checking the sum of the file, whatever. Steven did a lot of the base stuff, and he added stuff like symlinking. And I think in October, Ben also added like CLI options, I believe. In November, I started working on templating, and I had it working with specifically SSH configs, and I worked on some other miscellaneous stuff. But in terms of the templating, around the end of the month, Ben finished it. Absolutely clutched that one. And while Ben was finishing it, Steven was refactoring the code. And by the end of November, all of our code got merged onto the master branch. And then we could finally, at the end of it, just start like doing a ton of different config file generations, which is the point of Taper. But we really wanted to make sure that we had a solid base down for it, because this is kind of a project where if you don't, it just becomes very messy and spaghetti-like, and it kind of defeats the purpose if you don't. So next slide. All right, so Taper does the following things today. It compiles, so round of applause in the chat. Let's see that going on. We can do basic SSH, Git, an MPV configuration generation, but I've been adding a couple of other things, like even after RCOS ends, I believe I'll be adding a little bit more. I started working on I3, and I actually pushed some Vim stuff today. I don't even know if you saw that, Steven.
Not yet. I didn't get a chance.
Yeah. But we can also write to known file formats like JSON, YAML, and TOML. And then there's including literal text and appending files to configs. There's writing custom config file locations because our tool is to reduce annoyingness. And if it didn't have that, it would be annoying. So we had to add that. And then obviously, once again, there's checking for conflicts. So next page, let's go. Yeah, I see you in the chat, Professor Turner. Let's go. Okay. So the Taper installation steps, as you'll notice, there's only 4 steps, and it's really straightforward. And that's the point, okay? Taper is inspired by Home Manager, but Home Manager has so much just bulky stuff and other stuff that you don't necessarily need if you just want the configuration generation / managing. So basically, we have to package Taper still, but you just go ahead and you install it with your system's package manager. You read the man pages, and then you very quickly can just go and generate your own config files. So it's like to the point. You know what I'm saying, guys? I'm sorry. I'm just like really hyperactive because it's like, All right, next slide. Let's go. All right, unfinished. Yeah, this is the Okay, so thing number one, respecting all the command line options. So, like for example, we have -V for in the CLI option for verbose mode. That currently does nothing. User documentation for both the CLI and config format. We don't type check the DEL file yet. We also there are also some cases where my conflict checker might allow one or two special cases, and that needs to be patched up a little bit. And aside from that, we need to write more tests overall. I primarily write a lot of my stuff in C and C++, and it kind of sucks for unit testing, but I learned Rust this semester, and that's something that Rust is absolutely great at, and writing a lot of tests is still something I'm personally getting used to. And then overall bugs that we generally just haven't, we don't know about or haven't thought about. And then unstarted, we have, we've got, obviously Taper is functional and everything like that, and it generates most of the config files that I personally need, but I wouldn't say that we've, I wouldn't say we've implemented all of the config files that I would like. We still have a good amount of formats to add. We also need to package the dang thing. We need to get Taper out there a little bit more. I think that a lot of people would really like it, especially the people who use Home Manager. I mean, we would like it. Like, that's like why we made it. The DAL convenience functions need to be supported. And basically, adding new configs is relatively easy right now, but we have a few ideas on how we could make it even easier. So that is it pretty much, right? Isn't next slide, thank you for, let's go. I know this presentation start to finish, Stephen. I practiced. Okay, do we have any questions?
Any questions, comments, complaints even?
So,
Take anything.
Anybody want to ask a question? You guys can save people from having to answer my questions just by asking a couple of them. All right. So I'm really interested in this use of the mailing list. How did that work for you guys? I mean, I was in open source projects where that was the primary mode of communication. So it's kind of a retro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely retro. I think it went well for the semester. I am not sure if we're going to keep doing it or not, because it's definitely usable, and it has its advantages, but it does kind of feel a bit clunky, and you can kind of see why stuff like GitHub ditched that idea.
From my perspective, I thought it was pretty good, but there were some moments where I'd be just trying to I don't know. It has its pros and cons, we'll put it that way. I think I was actually talking to Steven earlier, and it's I don't know if we would even move to something like GitHub or Bitbucket or anything like that. I think it works pretty well, but pros and cons.
Yeah, one of the things that I used to like about it wasn't immediate. So if my time for actually concentrating on something was better. You get a Discord message and it's so immediate that you kind of feel the need to
do something.
Yeah, do something, right? You get the little thing blinks up on your Discord monitor, and all of a sudden you have a message, and it's way immediate. Whereas when you're dealing with a mailing list, you check it at 9, and you check it at 12 or 1, and you check it at 4 before you go home for any emergencies, and then you check it when you get home, and then you're done. So it was kind of a nice way not to have to feel the need to always be on call. And I think we're losing a little bit of that with some of these other tools. So I was just kind of wondering what your experience was as well. That said, I use all sorts of tools that I have to respond to immediately, so I'm certainly not immune to the charms. But anyway, I just kind of like that model a little bit. Any other questions for them other than mine and going on and on? So if we wanted to install it, you said to install it from a package. Do you have a package yet or not? Is that
we have a tar? No, we have a tarball that you can download from the CI. Last I checked, that was broken for some reason, and I have yet to figure it out. Okay. It should work, but I don't know why.
Go ahead.
Otherwise, install it from source, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Well, the other question. Well, it was not your recommended way, though. The other question.
No, that's true.
Just if I have a bunch of configuration files, is there a way to pull them in, or do I have to write them?
Yes. So one of the things Taper features, or two, I guess that you could say, is you can actually just paste into your Taper config file, which is in the DAL format, but you can paste in a string that will get copied into your config file. Or you can actually specify a different file that it will append at the end. Okay. So you technically can just do that. Alternatively, you can generate symlinks from wherever you want to wherever else you want to do stuff like that. That handles more complex configurations. Like some people have like multi-file Emacs configurations where they've got like 30 files in a folder. Mm-hmm. You'd want to symlink the whole folder instead of pasting in every file individually.
Yeah. Okay. I was just, like I said, I think I talked to you guys about this earlier. I don't have elaborate configuration files anymore because I've lost too many of them over the years. This may
you told us.
Yeah, this may get me back on the road of having my big alias lists and everything.
Awesome. Yeah, the idea is you only have to keep track of this one file now.
Exactly.
That's it. It's the only thing. You keep it in Dropbox or whatever you like, and you just run it on every new computer and it does its thing.
All right. Thank you, guys. I think all we have left is 990.
Yeah, it's just me.
Just you.
Yeah.
I think this is just you, not just you.
True. Okay. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So I'm 990. I'm Brooklyn Parslow. I'm a mentor for RCOS, and this is my GitHub link. All right, so I'm going to start with what is the IRS Form 990, which is what my project is named after. And it's the primary tool for gathering financial information about tax-exempt organizations, of which RPI is one. So it contains information on the president, cabinet, trustees, and highest paid employees. It's actually the only consistent list of who's on the board of trustees is through the 990 form. It has the top 5 contract jobs for RPI. Has fundraising numbers, so how much they earn, how much they spend trying to fundraise. There's also enrollment numbers and tuition numbers in here. Investments and return on investments. It's how we know if RPI loses money on any investments it makes, which it has. There's research contracts in here, grants to other organizations. So say RPI contributes to like Troy redevelopment, that's in here. And any activity they do outside the US, like study abroad programs. So you can see here, this is just a little screenshot of President Jackson's little area in the 990, and this is her reported compensation for the most recent year that we have on file and like any extra compensation. So that's also how we know that information. So it really forces a degree of transparency that allows the community to hold RPI accountable. I really don't think that RPI would release this information if we asked nicely for it and it weren't required by law. So yeah, it's also how we keep track of endowment funds and just general revenues. You can see, just note how lovely these prints are on these PDFs, because I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so what does this look like in action? In February, RPI tax return and lobbying expenditure data enabled me to do some of my favorite student journalism that I've done thus far. I don't know if some of you may not know, but RPI, like there was a New York State Senate bill introduced in February that would grant peace officer status to public safety officers, which would expand their powers a little bit. And this was posted and no one knew that it was happening, especially in student government. They found out from the bill's posting. And people were upset about this, like this huge new initiative expanding PubSafe. Yeah, that's actually the article that I wrote. Thanks for linking. So when I found out about this, I was like, and they also rationalized it by saying, oh, this bill is just to gather some input from the community, see how people feel about it. Like, we're just exploring this concept, is what they said. And I was pretty skeptical of that. So I started looking at lobbying expenditures in the 990s. This is their average over the past 4 years. And then I found out through the New York State Joint Commission on Public Ethics database that they had actually spent $22,000 to lobby for this bill. And you really don't spend $22,000 to explore a concept. So that kind of contradicted the things that they were saying. There's a lot of other articles out there by tons of organizations that use this type of data for their own institutions or for institutions at large. So it's really pretty powerful. So my project goals. I really wanted to make this data a lot more accessible to the RPI community. Half of the tax returns, so I think 10 of the years that we have right now, are exclusively in PDF form that look like the ones that I showed you before. So I wanted to convert this PDF data to XML data, which is the form that they released. The IRS had some open data initiative and started releasing raw XML files. So I'm converting them to that. And then I also wanted to provide some primers on this tax return data so that if anyone taking classes here wanted to do data analysis on this database, they could do it responsibly with some good research. This is all taken from the ProPublica Nonprofit Explorer. It's really an awesome resource. So organization in tech is basically a database of XML files. I consider JSONs, and this felt more human readable because they're chronological. So doing manual data entry on an XML file in an alignment with an 85-page PDF per year was a lot easier. I used Python. This will eventually be a REST API with Flask, but it's not there yet. I'll talk about that. And I used Replit. It's a very open source friendly, totally online IDE. One of the primary developers is actually an RCOS alum, Sydney Coachman. He introduced me to it. It has version control synced with GitHub and a lot of other stuff. Yeah, it really has come a long way. I really like it. And the version control stuff is in beta and it shows, but I still used it and it was fine. And then I'm using GitHub Pages and Hugo for docs. So where it's at, I'm still converting some PDFs to XML files. I think this is kind of a given considering it's like hundreds and hundreds of pages. But I did explore converting with OCR. It was too frustrating. I don't know if any of you have ever worked with tax forms before, but they vary from year to year, where things are, what questions are asked, how they're formatted, and really what feels like to a user, arbitrary ways. Yeah. So OCR was really, it just would have taken as long to do it manually. Yeah, it's extremely frustrating, but I figured once I do it, then no one else will have to do it after these 10 years are converted. And we only have XML data moving forward. So that's great. I've gathered a lot of resources like RSX, which is a XML reader that was developed I think in partnership with ProPublica. I have some primers in progress. I have functions for parsing some of the data. I also have a discussion page for reporting errors because I'm doing this manually. I'm obviously going to fact check it, but I want it to be as easy as possible. This is a GitHub. I don't think it's in beta anymore, but it's a new feature, the discussion pages. I just thought it would be a little simpler for the average user than opening a whole issue. So future, I need to finish converting all the data. I need to fact check it. I am not putting anything live until I fact check it. I think that's really irresponsible. So have to get there. I need to host everything. And then I'm going to add XML files each year, but that'll be simple in comparison to everything I've had to do so far. And then I'm also looking into adding other useful Rensselaer data, even if it's just links to it, to promote exploration of it, like lobbying expenditures or the common data set, which is a little more education focused than financial focused. So yeah, that's all. Thanks. And special thanks to Joey and Sid, they're former RCOS people, and also current RCOS person Avery. They all helped me make a lot of decisions for this project. So yeah. That's everything.
So any questions for Brooklyn? So I have, go ahead, never mind, similar linguistic group till below.
What? don't know what's happening to your video.
I just haven't switched off of.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this
is beautiful.
This is what feedback looks like visually, as opposed to.
Oh, I have some questions. The new 9IDT, I have not seen that. I will look at that though. And then Matthew, you can access all of this data right now on ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer. I link it in my slides, but if you literally Google ProPublica Nonprofit Explorer, and then you enter Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, it'll have all that data for you. You can also look at any other organization. Yep, you can see it. I like supporting ProPublica with the views and the clicks, and I think it's a really great initiative, and the way they format it is also very accessible. But yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, I do have an interest in going into investigative journalism. It's what I want to do with my life. So.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm not seeing these though. Where are you seeing? Oh, they go. Oh, they're private to you.
What do you mean?
I'm not seeing or hearing anybody talk.
Oh, they're chats. I'm reading chat.
They must be private because they're not. I'm not.
They're not private. It says to everyone.
Where the heck? Okay.
That's okay.
Regardless, this is Sydney. This is why you guys want to get your stuff up on RCOS, because you can live forever. Sydney did a lot of great things, and he launched and worked on a lot of great projects. I'm not surprised that Replit is useful and well appreciated, because he's, I think, useful would describe Sydney as well as anything else.
Yes, I agree.
So, put your stuff up there so we can see it. Submittee is live now, so I wanted to get that out, and it's late Professor Turner is the password. Now I'm trying to think of what I had a question for Brooklyn.
Sorry, I just wanted to cover stuff in chat before I missed it.
Yeah, no, that was great. You did the right thing. I just wasn't seeing it, so it's it was like I have no idea where these. She's just making up questions. So one of the things that there's both open source and there's open data, and you're kind of living at the intersection, right? Because you're pulling down open data, and then you're using open source projects to kind of pull them together and publish them and everything else. Is that kind of how you see it, or am I reading more into it than?
Yeah, no, that's definitely how I see it. I mean, like, all of this data has been publicly available for a very long time, but I don't think something being public and quote unquote accessible to the public is the same as like being like having that, I don't know, like it really being public and people actually knowing about it and it being easy to use and knowing how to use it and where it is. And I didn't know that this data existed until like 2 years of being a student journalist, and I think that's a shame. So I'm trying to make that so that doesn't happen for people in the future anymore. So I would agree.
Yeah,
that's how it is.
So I think you're doing a really cool project, and I kind of like where you're going with this. I don't know. You're thinking about journalism. Are you planning on pursuing this beyond and making a more general tool, or are you going to kind of branch out from here and do something else at this point?
I don't know. I do feel like I have unfinished RPI stuff that I want to work on in my spare time, just because I care a lot about this institution and think it has a lot of room to improve. But yeah, I kind of want to go into more stuff like this. I don't know if I specifically want to do financial data. I'm more interested in like our prison system and stuff like that, but we'll see.
One of the things that, the whole reason, I think the D3 stuff was invented was so they could show, visualizations of things like this. I'm just kind of wondering, have you thought about kind of pushing into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I did, Avery and I, who's is still in here, we actually worked, we did a visualization project together. I'm definitely interested in that stuff. I do have graphic design tools and like skills, but I've never worked with anything like any frameworks or anything. So I'm definitely going to look into that after Anishka talked about that.
Cool. Yeah. D3 is pretty good. We were using that when I worked at Kitware long time ago. All right.
Cool.
I am done. Although I have to say that if you want, we can probably talk about this a little bit longer. But
No, I'm done too. That's fine.
yeah, I think this is a really cool project. I like the presentation. Nicely done. And
Thank
if there
you.
are any more questions for Brooklyn? I think it's a good one to end up on too. There'll be a month for them to forget that I have this out, and I won't get tracked down by the police or the secret peace officers that RPI sets after us. You know, now that you've exposed all of the RPI financial secrets. All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. I think we had some really great presentations. I appreciate those of you who stuck around to the end, because I think, you know, we always try to end on a high note. I think that these last couple of them, they were all really good. I think this was a really good last day. So thank you very much. We're working on everything. Hopefully early next week you'll know your grades, and we'll see you all next semester. All right. We will see you, and so long.
See you, everyone.
Thank you for being with us on RCOS, because you guys are vital to our continuing. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you in the future in one of the future RCOS semesters.
Definitely. All right.
Great presentations. See you guys next semester, I hope.
And on that note, we will leave.